Hello, this is David Silverman, and I'm on Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan, which is strange because I guess I'm going to be alone with Jay Kogan, so it confuses me.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
Hi, welcome to Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan. Today we have a fantastic show. Simpson fans are always telling me, why don't you do more Simpsons shit? Well, it's happening. We have the all-time great director, well, one of the all-time, I would say the number one director of The Simpsons. He was there at the beginning. He was there, you know, you could say Wes Archer, you could say Brad Bird, but David Silverman is the guy. He's the guy who sort of gave us the fun visual timing of The Simpsons. He created so many of the best moments you've ever seen in The Simpsons, and he's a genius. I'm thrilled to be able to talk to him and bitch at him about what I don't like about The Simpsons, and he can politely tell me to settle down there, pal. The Simpsons is pretty great, and I think that Simpsons is pretty great, and I think David has done an amazing job at keeping it great these many years. It's amazing how long it's gone, and it's amazing how long he has been a part of it and been there to sort of keep a steady hand on it, along with, you know, Matt Selman and Matt Groening and Al Jean and Chip Brooks, to make the show what it is. We're going to talk a lot about what it means to be an artist. We're going to talk about what it means to be relevant, and talk about visual style, and talk about turning words into pictures with David Silverman, classic director, right after this.
Don't be alone with Jay Kogan.
David Silverman, thank you for being here, buddy.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Are you kidding?
I'm so excited.
Yeah.
I haven't seen you in person in many, many a moon.
Well, that's, I think, both our faults. I mean, we really should see each other more often.
Yes, it's
don't you
true.
think?
We like Zoom called, but we didn't see each other in person.
Right. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we should see each other more often.
I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
right.
And one of the purposes of me having a show is that I can actually just bring people in as an excuse to see them if I don't see them on a regular basis. So
this is a great way to get in touch with your old pals.
Yes.
Is have a podcast.
and then utilize them for monetizing their personalities and names.
Well, you picked the wrong person for this, but let's go.
I don't know. I put some feelers out on the internet about, like, would anybody like to ask David Silverman a question, and there were quite a few questions, and I'll ask you in a little bit. But your fame goes far and wide.
I'm always mystified by that, but
Yeah.
I accept.
And there are several things that are constantly brought up about you. We have the Simpsons being the main thing, honestly, the main thing.
Very good.
Although you've directed movies for Pixar and for other people and other things, but so tell me this. I was around in the Tracey Ullman Show when you were making the Simpson shorts.
Yes.
With Matt and Paul Germain. How did you get the gig of making the shorts?
It's very interesting because it all starts, I can go back to UCLA and doing a film.
I can also go back to UCLA because I haven't graduated yet, so I need to go back.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
When I first came to UCLA
Right.
from Silver Spring, Maryland,
Mm-hmm.
the UCLA Animation Workshop, I started a film called The Strange Case of Mr. Donnybrook's Boredom,
Mm-hmm.
based on Ogden Nash poem of the same name. And I actually got a fellow student, Alex Cox, director of Repo Man and Sid and Nancy, who was a student there at the time, to do the voices for it.
Okay.
And so I animated it, and it came out pretty well, and so well that I entered it in a competition called Focus, Films of College and University Students,
Okay.
sponsored by Nissan. And the grand prize in each category, there was like 4 or 5 categories, was a brand new car.
Truly?
Yeah.
Did you win a brand new car?
I won a brand new car.
What kind of car?
It was a Datsun 310.
Ah, kind of sporty.
That's kind of sporty.
All right.
Yeah. In any event, so I won in that. It was in 1982. 1984, they asked me to come back because I had been freelancing and working a little bit in the animation business and doing, freelance art. So, and I met some other winners, and one of the other winners was a really great guy named Bill Kopp, fabulous cartoonist,
Super
and animator.
funny.
Super funny,
Yeah.
very creative.
Mm-hmm.
We hit it off. We got along very well. And then he had done animation with his pal, Savage Steve Holland, who, was also from CalArts.
Right.
He was doing a film called One Crazy Summer. And that had 10 minutes of animation in it, and Bill was directing the animation, and Bill got me involved in that, and that was in 1985. And then about one of the other animators there was Wes Archer, along with Tim Bjorklund and Jeff Myers.
Okay, so Wes was also one of the original Simpson directors.
Exactly, and also what happened was Wes had worked at, so this is in '85. Somewhere around '86, the film was done. Beginning of '87, I guess Wes was approached by Gabor Chupo because he had worked with him once before, like freelance for his very tiny company at the time.
Right.
Klasky Chupo. And they had gotten the Tracey Ullman Show contract to do M.K. Brown and Matt Groening's work. And that's how Wes got Bill and myself involved.
Did Matt have any idea what he was trying to do then, or was he still sort of figuring it out? Because I know at the time he was like, at first it was a discussion, let's do Life in Hell, and he went, no, not selling you that. So I'm going to sell you this thing. And then I know for a fact that when he pitched, I'm going to sell you this thing, this family, he didn't quite know exactly what it was to start with.
Not at the very start, but it was interesting. At one point, we didn't know. Because we just knew them as mom and dad.
Right.
So I said, well, Wes and I asked, what are their parents' names? He says, oh, it's Homer and Marjorie. I said, okay.
Right.
And that we didn't know it was based on his parents' names. And also he told us, and Homer works at the nuclear power plant.
Okay.
And so he had that idea in mind, and we often did drawings of Homer, like just sort of thinking deep thoughts, like he was this great nuclear physicist.
Right.
Because, no, he wasn't. No, that because that persona had yet to be really established.
Right. Well, he was more the sort of Walter Matthau, the angry guy who was like, oh, you kids.
Exactly.
Right.
But he's very enthusiastic.
Right.
Come on, boy.
Right.
That kind of
he
thing.
didn't become like stupid Homer until much later.
No. Even it's sort of, I think you would probably say in the first two seasons, it sort of evolved in that direction, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, from the very first episode we wrote, he was.
He wasn't the brightest bulb in the.
No, he was kind of
tree.
dumb.
Yeah.
He was kind of dumb. He was like super angry in the shorts.
Yes.
And much dumber in the series.
Yes, he's maybe started off a little on the angry side, but became more idiotic. Yes.
And then with full, lobotomy at certain seasons, like season 7 or 8, is like he just had no sense of self at all. But that's fine. You brought some stuff. One of the things that we did early on is my dad is a writer for Mad Magazine, and so they were going to do a behind the scenes of The Simpsons. And I told Dad, I said, call them and say, if they're going to do a behind the scenes of The Simpsons, I have photos. So I took photos of everybody and sent them in, because most of the time they do behind the scenes of a TV show, it's the actors who they're doing. But in this case, it's the writers and the animators, because the actors are cartoon characters.
Exactly.
So we got to be drawn in Mad Magazine.
Well, that was actually, I have it here. This is actually my favorite magazine appearance.
Okay.
Was in this issue. I assume we can do a close up of this.
We can eventually.
Yeah, eventually close up. But anyhow, it was a great, great two-page spread.
Yeah.
Yeah, look at that. Very nice. I'm up here in the corner.
Right.
Demonstrating on how to draw how the difference between Homer and Fred Flintstone, or the similarities thereof.
Somewhere in there.
Yeah, you're in here somewhere.
Anyway.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. But
I mean, we were drawn in Mad Magazine. Such a fantastic, cool thing.
I know. I was even in the referral page. How
nice.
Awesome is that?
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now
Sam Viviano did a beautiful job.
I invite my friends on to the show for a reason. And usually it's to help me with something. It's to help me with a problem I have.
Oh, okay.
One of the things that I am impressed with you and with Wes and with Brad and some of these guys I worked with at the very beginning is your ability to think in pictures in a way that is spectacular. So I think in pictures. I imagine a scene. I imagine things, but I don't think in the same detail, in the same aspect that you do. I mean, you know, every writer writes a scene and we think, okay, somebody takes a drink and then they spill a tray, and we have in our heads kind of the image of how it, but you have to imagine it and think of the timing and actually make all the acting and all that kind of stuff work. I mean, you make it from nothing.
I guess. Yeah, you're right. But you know, very early on, I was interested in comedy entertainment, and not just cartoons, which I love dearly. But I think it helped that my parents took me and my brother Josh to see a double feature of Charlie Chaplin's Modern Times and the Gold Rush when it was on a re-release in the early 60s or something like that. And in a like an art theater in New York City where we were born originally, even though we lived in Silver Spring, Maryland. But that made a big impression on me. I got to tell you, especially Modern Times, they made a very strong impression on me when I was 5. And so much that we wanted to see it twice. And my parents were only too happy. But they kept, you know, showing me, or my dad especially kept showing me, introducing me to like Laurel and Hardy and Abbott and Costello. And of course, we watched the Three Stooges religiously.
Looney Tunes, I'm
Looney
sure.
Tunes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, then let's not even get into the animation. I mean, let's everything from Jay Ward, you know, Rocky and Bullwinkle to Huckleberry Hound to all the Hanna-Barbera to the Looney Tunes. Right? And I guess what I'm talking about is I started really enjoying and marveling at, you know, just amazingly quick comic timing. And that's the thing that I got really interested in.
And you're amazing at it, and I find that
I guess I'm pretty good at it. Yeah.
You're pretty good at it, and I think it's one of the sort of things that separates the good animation from the bad animation is that timing, because a lot of people have amazing visual palettes and that kind of stuff, but you know, you have to bring a sense of reality to something and still have the sense of like waiting for the right rhythm of the scene.
For that feel of it. Now, partly I was also very interested in music, and you know, I also play music. I play the tuba.
We have a lot of questions about that.
Yes, that's a crazy thing, folks. I know.
Why do you play the tuba? Let's just stop right there.
Okay. I wanted to play something. It was actually late in my high school career, and I had a lot of friends who were in the band and were musicians, and I knew a lot about music. I knew how to read music. I was reading, you know, scores, like symphonic scores. I was very fascinated by music, and I just felt I couldn't be an observer. I had to be a participant, and you know, but what to play. And I liked the sound of the tuba. I really did like the sound of it, and I thought it was also kind of funny.
It is funny, but it's also relegating you to the side. Like you could have been a conductor if you were that good at music. You could have been.
I thought about conducting.
Okay,
I thought
all right. But I mean, how many conductors come from the world of tubas?
About 17. No, I don't know.
Not a lot. I would say that most come from the world of, let's say, the piano and possibly the violin. The first violin is usually like, okay, now you're going to be the conductor.
A couple of double bass players, by the way.
Okay, all right, a few. But it's like again, the percussion is in the back, the tubas.
But there's some amazing tuba players. That's what you started. If you really look into it, oh my God, they're as virtuoso as the greatest trumpeters or trombonists and anything like that.
But when you first got the change between the cartoon, the little shorts, and the series, was there anything daunting about it, going from the short to the long?
It was all pretty daunting because I really hadn't done anything like that before. I've directed my own films, you know, in college, but I hadn't really done like a half hour of animation.
And you did not, and I blame you for not making that clear at the beginning. When we first hired you, you did not say, by the way, I am feeling very daunted. I don't know how this is going to go.
I don't know what the heck I'm doing.
Yeah, you didn't say that at all.
No, I said, yeah, I can do it.
Absolutely. How high?
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
Well, the first show that I directed, as I think you know, was Bart the Genius.
Right.
And in that one, I was really, really trying my best to be as inventive as possible, and be also rhythmic as possible. There are certain things that I did deliberately, like when Bart was having his fantasy, as a fantasy about the math problem. There was a part where he's going to be banging into this train coming the opposite direction, and I did a series of cuts, and every cut was a frame shorter, basically after a certain point. Literally a frame, deliberately a frame shorter, so it got quicker and quicker and quicker, and bam, crashes into it.
Fantastic.
And then there was a scene where he's writing his confession, and I said, I want to do this in one shot. I don't want to have cutaway. I thought I could have cutaways. I could, like, you know, the pencils like large as he writes his, you know. I said, no, let's just have him writing it out, and let's watch the transition on his face from like, well, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna say that. Oh, I give up. I am a dumb kid.
Right.
You know, just show the whole. So that all this.
So the emotional performance.
Yeah.
Let the actor. It's not an actor, it's a drawing. Let the actor do it.
Yeah, but the same idea. Same idea. The performance
Yeah.
runs the scene as opposed to the editing running the scene.
Yeah.
So I was trying to give that variety of visual texture.
Here's the thing. Your background was Charlie Chaplin. I know Chaplin. I know Keaton. I know things. I don't know that I think visually, even with the same love of background in theater and all, the same. The talent of what that is comes from either because you worked at it and you're so good at it, or because it's innate in you. When you watch things, do you watch them first for the story and then visually, or do you watch things visually as equally?
I think equally.
Yeah.
I get really involved with the visual an approach that's happening as well as the storytelling. I mean, probably more the storytelling, especially I'm very intrigued. I'll turn that off because I'm just watching the story and I want to do that. But I can sort of, part of my brain is like absorbing, like, oh, that was a cool visual.
Right, the shot that just moved us, that moved the story ahead. Yeah. All that kind of stuff. I forget about that until my second or third watching. Honestly, I'm watching something and then I'll watch Michael Corleone. Michael Corleone, the last scene where Kay is watching him get his hand kissed and the door closes. It's a long shot, and I'm thinking about, oh, what is it like for Kay? I'm not thinking, why is the camera static and we can only see a glimpse through the door, and suddenly, oh, that's it. He's leading a secret life. On the 50th viewing, I'm now thinking, oh, well, how smart is that? You know.
And I don't think this is the same case, but for example, like, I mean, one of my very favorite films is North by Northwest.
Sure.
And the first time I saw that, one of the shots that really hit me, and I remember very clearly it hit me like very strongly, was that shot as he's running out of the UN, and it's this down shot, matte painting, like a 1-point perspective, staring straight down, like impossibly at the time, from the top of above the UN, looking straight down, and it's this lone figure, you know, in the matte shot, put in just running for a taxi, which is like totally impossible. There's no other people. But I just was incredibly impressed by that. I said, wow, that's cool.
And what did it mean at the time? What does it mean in the movie? It's beautiful, but what does it mean?
Oh, then to me it means, wow, this is like, you know, the whole world is like kind of crashing down, and he's a tiny little speck, man alone, you know, nowhere to go.
So if you're thinking about this as a storyteller, visually telling stories, what then, you know, how do you keep it fresh? You've been at The Simpsons. I know you're doing sort of the special features now and all this kind of stuff, but you know, you have your hand in The Simpsons. How do you keep it fresh after 85 years?
I think part of it is not worrying about, is it fresh? Is it just telling the story well? Or is it presenting the joke in the best way? Or is there a funnier way to present this joke? And sometimes, is there an inventive way to tell this joke? Is it funnier if we have somebody here and then we reveal the punchline, like Homer moves out of the way and you reveal somebody who you didn't expect was saying this, something like that.
What happens when you get the shittiest script you've ever read and you say, oh, now I've got to make something funny that I don't think is funny? Well, and I'm not saying that this happened on The Simpsons. No, God forbid. The Simpsons is a perfect show.
This has never happened on The Simpsons.
On other shows and other venues, it might have happened. So.
Well, it's had on certain things that I've worked on, and I won't say what they are.
Sure.
Because, although I got to say, I kind of been very fortunate. I've been working on pretty great things.
Right.
So,
but I mean, even in great things, I've written great things, and with the center of great things are shitty jokes and bad moments and things that don't play and things that are described, but in a stage direction, but that might not be possible to make. So
well, I sometimes the thing I try to do is that, like you say, okay, this is like maybe the greatest material, but maybe there's a great way to present it. Maybe there's a fun thing to be had in the performance. Right. And when, you know, and we're drawing the performances, but still, even though it's a drawing, it is a performance. It comes across as a physical performance. And you think about it in terms of that, and then like, okay, what's the funniest way to do this? Maybe there's some comedy in this line that can be reflected in an expression or something like that.
Have you ever done this thing, which I would have done a million times, which is in the storyboard process or somewhere early on in the process, I would try to reveal to the writers, this particular moment doesn't have a lot of juice. Just like, not saying you tank it, but I'm just saying like, this is the best I can make of this moment.
Sort of hang a light on it.
Yeah,
basically. Yeah,
exactly.
I think in a sense I did. Well, actually, honestly, in the very first thing that I presented ever to you guys was the storyboard for the opening title sequence.
Right.
And I didn't have a gag for Lisa, because Lisa was kind of a cipher in the Tracey Ullman Show short. She didn't have a very defined characters. So I actually, and Sam and Matt did not give me a specific gag for Lisa. They gave me something for Homer, basically for everybody.
Right.
But
I remember we pitched on it. I think we pitched
that's what
on
happened.
it. Yeah.
That's what happened. So I put in a gag that I knew that wasn't terribly good, but I put in a gag anyhow just to say Lisa
You need
needs a
something,
gag.
yeah.
And that's what led to
The saxophone.
because I said that maybe she plays in the band.
Right.
And guess what instrument I
Tuba?
suggested?
Did you say tuba?
I
Yeah.
said tuba.
And everybody said no sane human would play the tuba.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, no, what happened was Jim said it, and I swear he said it this quickly. He said, well, I don't like the tuba, but what if she played the baritone saxophone?
Right.
In fact, what if she played it really well? That could be her character. She could be the genius kid of the family that nobody appreciates.
Yeah.
And bingo, right?
Yeah.
Well, and I think you guys started writing Moaning Lisa the same day.
Part of it is just agreement. That's the interesting thing about creativity. Is like part of it's just everybody just jumping in and agreeing. Yes, baritone sax is, of course, the perfect thing. When it didn't have to be the perfect thing. It's just a thing.
No, exactly. And then, but certainly her being the genius kid that nobody appreciates, well, that's something. That's something you could really develop character and stories off of.
Right.
Like right away.
We did eventually.
Yeah.
We got that.
Pretty quick.
Yeah,
I'd
pretty
say.
quickly. We got that. I still can't tell you what it was about Bart that people liked exactly. Because I honestly, I just don't, Bart's, he's quite a rascal or what. Is he? I think he's just a kid, and he's
kind of Peck's bad boy, but not really. But
right. I just don't. He's not as specific to me as Lisa is, or as Homer is, or as Marge is.
What there are two things he does benefit by. I think first of all, that very iconic design is great. Matt's initial idea of these characters, that's why they're yellow, because Bart, Lisa, and Maggie don't have a hairline. So Georgie Pelusi, the color stylist, had to come. And I don't know if she told me she wasn't thinking about it, but she did come up with a color that you could buy as a hair color and a skin color.
Oh, fantastic!
So that was kind of how they became yellow.
Yeah.
But also Nancy Cartwright's voice characterization. It's a great voice.
Yeah,
it's just a great voice.
Of course, the voices bring things, the writers bring things, the animators bring things. But I must say that as a writer on the show, we took for granted, I believe, what the artists brought to the party. We enjoyed it, but we basically, we tell them what to. We would take pride in saying, "Here's our stage direction." So we tell them what to do, and then they do it, as if you can just do that. Like if you try to draw that, try to time that, try to make the thing.
There were a lot of challenges. Although I do remember one time, and I realize you do have a point, because I remember when I was reading Burn Cells Factory. I forget how to pronounce it in German. I was reading that episode, and I came across The Land of Chocolate. I fell out of my chair laughing. And it wasn't like, all it said was like, the land of chocolate.
It's one of the funniest sequences ever.
Right. And it just said that Homer imagines himself in the land of chocolate. Something like he's deliriously happy and da-da-da. And for some reason, when I read Homer imagines himself in the land of the chocolate, I laughed really hard at that line. And it just killed me, probably because I immediately thought of what Homer would be like.
So that's one of the things where we as a writer, I would have expected to write what happens in the land of chocolate. I wouldn't have just sent it out and just said, like, I hope somebody comes up with something cool. But
you guys did write things. You had chocolate half price, and biting the dog's butt, and all that kind of stuff. But and then you wrote, he's skipping after chocolate bunnies in the land of chocolate. Yeah. So you did write that.
All right. Okay.
So that was written, but I just had to give Homer that.
Yes, that lilting, fun. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Just like he's out of his mind
Yes.
in deliriousness.
It's so good.
Yeah.
I'm also one of my happiest moments in my life is the animation for Bart the Daredevil when he falls down the cliff, and that
was amazing.
That's all Buster Keaton. I mean, that's 100% Buster
Exactly.
Keaton stuff.
It was yes, exactly. And Wes Archer directed that episode. Did a brilliant job all throughout the episode.
Wes did or Brad?
Wes did. Brad
Okay, yeah.
brilliantly directed Krusty Gets Busted.
That's right.
Really
Brad,
brilliant.
Wes. Oh my God, it's so funny and it's just so perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every bit of it.
Well, everything about it, all the Lance Murdoch stuff is hilarious, and then the very final thing at the end with it going off, not hitting the gorge.
Lance Murdoch swimming with a tank full of sharks and one lion is so funny. It's set up so well because they talk about the lion in the middle of the tank of sharks,
Right.
and then we don't hear about it later until Lance Murdoch falls into the tank and is attacked by the lion and pulled back in.
When he gets out of the tank and the lion
Yeah.
pulls him back into the
Oh.
It's so great. And then I remember actually at the time I was still living with two other guys in a house, in West LA.
Right.
Not realizing, I have enough money now to live on my own. But
When did you realize you had enough money to live on your own?
I think about halfway through the second season.
Okay.
We were working pretty hard. We remember we didn't really
We
have
didn't
a lot of
sleep.
time.
Yeah.
Didn't sleep, and we didn't really go outside. We heard like over the newspaper that the show was popular.
Right.
But we didn't really know how popular.
Oh,
it was.
we knew it was popular. I still have stolen cells from Klasky Chupo.
Oh yeah.
That Sam Simon walked in and just pulled cells out of drawers and said, "You have this, and you have this, and you have this." I have them.
Oh, good.
Framed.
Take a look at them.
Yes, they're beautiful, but it's I don't know what to do with them.
Yeah, I'm the same. I have a couple of those too. So
Yeah, no.
yeah, they're framed.
Yeah, mine
Yeah.
too. But and at one point, 20th Century Fox said, "We'll bring your cells in, and we'll stamp them and number them and approve them." And I went, "I'm not bringing them. These are stolen cells. I'm not bringing them back to the company that we stole them from." That seems like a trap to me.
Yeah, that seems. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
don't worry. We'll
Exactly.
stamp them and give it back to
Yeah, but
you.
it's all fine, right? No.
Oh yes, officer. I'll come quietly.
Because Rupert Murdoch's company's been always very generous to all people all the time. Well, here's the thing. Do you remember? This is settled. Do you remember there was a time when Matt was concerned, that particular bit, he was concerned that it's too cartoony to fall down a cliff.
Oh yes.
Okay, too cartoony to fall down a cliff. And Sam Simon was like, "No, it's great. Or we're going to do it." And there was like a push and pull. Eventually, Matt has come to say that he loves it. But it's one of, and I completely understand the idea that falling down a cliff is Wile E. Coyote's purview and not The Simpsons, which we wanted to be. But at one time I remember the animation of some of it was canceled. It was like they didn't want to do it. They didn't want to make it.
Oh,
and then it was a fight between like, should we make it, and some version of the show came back without it.
Oh, interesting.
And then we came back and said, we need to animate it.
Well, I understand. I can understand the concern that Matt may have had and other people may have had because we were trying to do a
cartoon,
right? But we found that balance. That sometimes it's actually very realistic, and sometimes it's wildly cartoony.
Right.
And then of course we found where we can do anything we wanted to in the non-canon stuff, like the Treehouse of Horror things that was originally done one time the second season, then let's do it again, and then we've done now 35 of them. So
you're welcome. That was
Thanks.
That was us. That was Wally and me and Matt, I think.
That's great. No, that was the greatest. Yeah. And look, the Raven is one of my favorite things I've ever done. So.
And one of my least favorite. I don't know why. I mean, James Earl Jones, God rest his soul, fantastic. But it was sort of like that's the reason Sam wanted to do it. Was to do the Raven. And it was like
you have James Earl Jones.
James Earl Jones, and I was there for the recording, and James Earl Jones was powering down chocolate chip cookies, and his mouth was full of crumbs as he's doing it. But
but it was great.
Tell me what you loved about the Raven.
I loved doing something visually interesting because I had a great deal of latitude, because it was somewhat left up to me to come up with interesting visuals. And interesting.
It was
angles.
interesting. I just don't know that to me for the Halloween shows, it wasn't as funny to me as when it really just took the poem and
It has some funny things in it.
Yeah, exactly. But it brought the Raven to life in a very fantastic way.
Yeah.
But I was like, I want more I want more gags. I want.
So did Jim Brooks.
Yeah.
You know, I remember for the
Right.
you know he had him saying, you know, eat my shorts. You
Right.
know, he had us throw this. He had a lot of things thrown
Right.
in there, but I didn't mind because I had a great time. There was a great UPA cartoon called The Telltale Heart, Edgar Allan Poe, that I was inspired by that. In fact, I watched that several times
Right.
to get inspiration for some of the imagery.
Who was the director? No names, but what did you do with the director who didn't quite get it? Like somebody who was in your stable of directors who had a show and like they're missing the mark here and here and here and here. How did you sort of bring them along?
We don't have any, nobody like that completely missed it, but there were some aspects. I think we just started looking into like more like that, more introspectively, how better to get the performance going, and also just some very basic ideas. Well, one that David Merkin always articulated, he said, don't cut on the punchline. Whatever you do, don't cut on the punchline. Don't have a setup here and then cut to a close-up of someone giving the punchline.
Right.
Stay on the wide, or pick the shot and just stick with it. Because if you do that, you undercut the humor.
Were we cutting on the punchline before Merkin showed up?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But I mean, I was aware of it, but I didn't. I thought it was great to hear it articulated like that.
Yeah.
That really helped me not only in what I was doing, but also helped me to communicate to other people. Like
Right.
what was it that they were missing? In this.
And do you know why? Well, can you elaborate why it's a problem to cut on the punchline? What does it do to that moment?
It upstages it.
Yes.
It upstages.
It makes it sweaty and makes it sort of like, and here it is.
Exactly.
And, yeah.
Exactly.
Right.
Or it's if something on to related to the stage, if somebody's saying the punchline and some in the background does something like this as you're delivering the joke,
right,
it will take the audience's
Distracting.
attention.
Yeah.
So
tell me the other stuff you brought. You brought a script.
Let's see. Yeah, I brought these scripts, and what's interesting, these are two of the first script that I had. You can tell they're
Very old.
They're very old. They're both from Bart the Genius.
Right.
And what's interesting about them is that they have sketches that basically became part of the composition.
Wow.
In the final, which is kind of interesting to me that, you know, these little thumbnail sketches actually ended up
in the show.
Not all of them,
Yeah.
but some of them. Like here's an interesting shot. It looks like Lisa's feet skipping rope.
Yeah.
Kind of an interesting shot.
That's beautiful.
But that's not in the show.
I
Yeah.
bet if you put that on eBay, you could get like $35 for that.
At least hundreds of pennies.
Yeah. I mean, that's good. I mean, listen, that's retirement. You just hold that stuff and someday you put it on eBay and you get like $30, $38, $39 each.
And then you're all set.
You're set.
You eat for
You're
a
set.
month.
That's what I'm going to do with my stolen cells.
Yes, exactly.
I go in there and they'll say, how do we know they're authentic?
They're all worth tons.
Yeah.
Now this is I don't have many of these because we didn't keep a lot of the rough sketches. This is
wow.
a rough sketch from Homer Go Crazy in the Shinning.
Wow. That's a
the,
crazy sketch.
That's the vrt, vrt
Yeah.
sound.
Wow.
The you know, what's his name? Charlie Callis sound, I guess, that he makes. Yes.
That's he looks frightening there.
Yes. Well, that was sort of the idea.
Yeah. And now let's talk about the weird stuff that Homer is crusty.
Right. You and Matt.
We talked about that, and then
yeah.
talked about Marge having rabbit ears. Did we talk about that? And with Matt, I don't remember, but Marge had rabbit ears. You know,
disguised rabbit ears.
Matt believed for many years that Marge had rabbit ears,
right,
and that in the big giant
bouffant,
yes. The beehive hair is rabbit ears,
right?
And at a certain point, I think it came to loggerheads when we did the sort of flashback episode to the high school.
Oh, right, in the second season, yeah.
Second season, and Marge's hair was down and long
Correct.
and looked like she was in the 70s.
Right.
And Matt said, you can't have her hair that way because she has rabbit ears. And we went so like, well, but she's a human. And I was like, no, she has rabbit ears.
Well, her rabbit ears were like flat.
Right.
You know.
Right.
I've seen Bugs Bunny with his ears down like
I
this.
have too.
So maybe it's just that.
But it's that inspiration. Like, see, that's the cool thing about it. Like having sort of these hidden thoughts and feelings about these characters that sort of make it special, I think.
Well, maybe that's why the shows has such longevity, is that it's inconsistent and but it's consistently inconsistent in its tone.
Or, and hear me out, only shitty things have come after, and they can't put anything better on. I just think that maybe there's a creative drought that's been happening for the last 35 years.
That's another possibility.
Just a possibility.
That's another possibility.
But no, let's talk about the thing that we were always arguing about, which is Homer strangling Bart and how elastic their heads are and faces were when you were drawing it. So like there was a time in the shorts, I think, when
very elastic.
He would strangle Homer would strangle Bart, and Bart's head would stretch and face would stretch, and
I still draw when I draw him strangle. I still have a certain thing where his mouth is almost this giant sort of letter C,
right,
and his tongue comes out like a sine wave, and his eyes bulge out in different ways. So I still do that.
All right,
but actually, I didn't. Well, the first time he was strangled that I drew him, it was a frozen photograph for family portrait, so it wasn't quite that elaborate. Second time was the Bart Simpson show, where he empties out the TV set and does the puppet show, and Homer comes in, and it's a double strangle. So he's strangling, why you little? Right. It's a double strangle of him strangling and Bart strangling back.
The puppet, right?
So that's where I had the eyes sort of bulging and going sort of sideways. But I thought might have been the only two times we did it in this.
But we talked about it in the series. Like, first of all, stop strangling. And in
Were
general,
you guys talking about it very early on?
Yeah, a little bit. But I mean, it was actually one of the things that you and Matt and the guys were talking about that mattered a lot, that I never really thought about. Again, it's not my purview to think visually like that. I just thought, oh, well, that's a cartoon strangle. And it was Matt's whole idea was, let's not do cartoony strangles. Let's try to do less of that anyway. And that was, at least I think that was him trying to pull that back, or somebody. I remember there was a fight over it.
But I don't know if Matt doing it so much. I mean, there was a question, we actually had a joke about him not doing it anymore, and people actually believed us.
Right.
So we had to no, we're still strangling from time to time.
Right.
We've had a lot of fun with the strangling.
I think that most shows would have questions about a father strangling a son. At a certain point.
Most shows.
But we've been able to sort of circumvent that a little bit.
So far, you know.
Well, David, now it's time for question time.
Oh, questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Hello, audience.
It's question time.
DJ Morty Coyle asks, ask them if foreign parking lot hot dogs taste better before or after concerts. Do you know what he's talking about? Jeff Lynne concerts.
Oh, yes. I think they taste better after the concert.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Right. Did you go to a Jeff Lynne ELO concert?
I did, rather recently.
Well, this guy apparently saw you there. This is DJ Morty Coyle, who's...
I thought I recognized. Hello, Morty.
Hey, it's Liam asked, going from The Simpsons to a big studio like DreamWorks as an animator, does he find there's a trade-off, e.g. creative freedom versus bigger budget? Also, how much does he make?
My salary is staggeringly low.
Okay.
I would say I didn't really find a trade-off in creative freedom, because we're trying to do the same thing.
Right.
We were trying to make as good a film as we can.
Right.
And everybody was trying their best.
Did you find it easier with the giant budget?
No.
All right.
It's always hard. Making these animated films is very hard.
I understand. It's hard for a half hour at a much lower price than a $100 million,
in some ways,
more.
In some ways, it's a little easier to make those half-hour ones because you have to.
Yeah.
And the deadline says, well, you got to do it now. So you kind of go like, we're going to go this way because time's up.
My least favorite thing is doing a punch-up on a animated DreamWorks movie that has already been rendered, because they render the movie and then they look at it and say, it's not funny enough. What jokes can you pitch that we don't have to animate, that can be off-screen, or that can be... And it's like, what are you talking about? It's like, well, so we rendered it. It costs a lot of money to render it. So can we... Is there any off-screen jokes that we can make? It's like, no. You can't. They're terrible.
Because actually I've been in a couple of them. Selman got me involved in some of them, and at least we had the opportunity to pitch things that they could animate.
Right.
So, but when they just want off-screen jokes, that's like
or take the thing that's already been animated
and try to redo the mouth
put something else in the mouth, which we used to do on The Simpsons all the time.
Oh
anyway.
yes, you can do that. That's easier. But any event,
you're stuck with you're
kind of
limited.
straitjacked.
Yeah. Crispy Kringle Gotham says, Is there a decision you regret, whether character design or plot wise, in the 36 plus years of the show's history that you wish you could change?
There's one thing in the movie that I think was too bad that we didn't have, because I had it in the final, not the final, maybe the penultimate shot. It's the very end where we start with groundskeeper Willie, and he's at the table saw. He's wood carrying over, and you reveal that everybody in the town is rebuilding the Simpson house. We actually had a slight pan down to Santa's Little Helper and Snowball 2 and Plopper putting the doghouse together. I think like maybe the dog had a paintbrush in its mouth, and we had them like together, and for some reason we didn't shoot that.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh,
and I think we had it in the animatic, and I don't know where the decision was not to do it. So many things are going on at that time. I am directing, but there were so many things happening, and it just didn't happen. And it said, oh no, that was cut out by, I don't know, by so and so, but maybe the decision was, oh, by that time they had seen enough of the pig, which they obviously hadn't.
No one has seen enough of that pig.
Yes, exactly.
People love that pig.
Yes, exactly. I think that was one thing we didn't realize, how much people were going to love that pig.
People love that pig.
But in any event, yes, that's a regret.
Here's a question that Adam and Snurts both asked, kind of the same thing. Is there any scene or sequence that sticks out as having caused the most amount of challenge or struggle that still haunts you to this day?
That's something that I did.
Did you wake up in a cold sweat and go like, oh, how did I do that?
Well, actually, there is one that I still don't know how I did, and that now it's not as complex as it would be these days, thanks to the fact that we do things, we composite with, we do computer compositing.
Yeah, you guys cheat.
And we can fix things much easier
Right,
now.
I understand.
But I had this in the I think it was the 14th episode. It was the 14th episode, not that I did, but episode number 14, which was Bart gets an F.
Right.
And it's snow day, the funnest day in the history of Springfield. And it starts with Bart pushing back the blinds, and he looks out, and it was this long pan of the greatest snow day ever in one long shot that I read it in the script that way, and I just sort of challenged myself to do this crazy long pan. It was a very difficult shot back when the resources were much more limited, and I had to basically do a lot just on my own. And there's no I hope they shoot it right the first time. And I have to time everything right, because it's not like we get a lot of chances.
That one worked. That was good. That one worked.
That would work, but every now and then you're right. I'll go, wait, how did I do that? It's done. I'll go back to sleep.
All right, now it's time for listener mail.
Now it's time for listener mail.
Dear Jay and guest, you're the guest. After all you've done, after all you've failed at, after all you've succeeded at, what matters in this life? As you get older, is it hard to do whatever that thing is? Signed, Sydney.
What matters in life?
What matters? We've won, we've lost. What matters? At the end of the day, what matters?
What matters? I think what matters is trying to be uplifted regardless of what's going on.
Uplifted, not uplifting, but be uplifted.
Be uplifted yourself. I think in that way you can be uplifting to others. If you are yourself inside uplifted.
Are you good at that? Are you good at
pretty good at
bringing
that.
yourself back up after you've been smacked down?
I've been pretty good at that. I've been very fortunate. I haven't been smacked down too often per se.
Well, the show's not over.
Yeah, it's not over. I'm sure I get smacked down from time to time. I look for what's fortunate in your life. And, that says, I'm not doing too badly. Maybe I shouldn't be too upset about things.
Keeping yourself elevated.
Keeping yourself a little buoyant.
Okay.
I think, and again, it's not that I succeed all the time, or we can succeed all the time. But it seems like the most important thing as the journey continues. For every revolution around the old sun.
Sure. My answer is a little different. My answer is experience itself. So all experience is valuable. That's the only point. It's, the the end of the question was, as you get older, is it hard to do that thing? And the actual experience of getting older is that thing.
Yes.
So we stay relevant by just experiencing what we're having in that moment.
Exactly. Yeah. So far, I'm very fortunate. I haven't felt myself getting old yet.
Yeah.
Even though I am getting old, I don't feel it.
You're just in denial.
Well, that was the next part of my answer.
Right. Okay.
Being in denial is very important.
It is very important.
Yes,
I agree.
Yes.
But
the older you get, the more in denial you should be.
You're perennially young. I feel you're a little older than me, but I feel like you're younger than me in spirit. Like I'm chronologically, it's different, but inside you still feel like you're just a young guy exploring the world, and I feel like I'm getting closer to curmudgeon every day. So.
Well, it's the writer's side.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah,
I guess
it helps in the cynical writing. It's very funny.
It does help, and you can't help it. But I'm not always cynical. I'm just curmudgeon. All right. Well, thank you for being here, David. I really appreciate it.
So much.
You're a legend, and you're a good man, and I've enjoyed our many years, 30, 40 years of friendship. Holy shit.
I know.
That's a long time. And it's incredible. You're a very powerful person, very interesting person, and I know you don't like all this talk, but I appreciate you as a person and as an artist, and that's fabulous.
Well, thank you, Jay, and I certainly right back at you.
Yeah, you have to say that. I don't know.
I have to say that. Yeah. It's written on the wall, folks. It's reply to the compliment.
Exactly. So thank you for being on Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan, and you at home, don't be alone. Go find an old friend and go sit and talk with them. It's not that hard. It just takes 30 years to figure out, and then you'll do it. But just go do it and have a good time. And we will see you on Don't Be Alone with Jay Kogan next time. Before we go, write me at dawjk@gmail.com with your suggestions, your questions, and like the show and follow the show and share the show. And I'll see you next time.
Don't be alone.